Hello, my friends, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be looking at my weekly finance state, which kicked off with a YouTube search trying to figure out who designed the original template that I have for my finance tracker. I've done a lot of templates by Red Gregory. I've used their savings dashboard. And then finally, I found the tracker that I use. It is a tracker from Chris's Notion. And this is where you're going to want to go if you want to build it or you want to download it. But let's go ahead and dive into my weekly finance date, which usually happens when I'm doing my weekly review and typically starts with a cup of coffee.
One thing I do want to give a heads up about before we get into my weekly finance date is the fact that I am not a financial advisor or a financial planner. I am just a regular human, and my intention in sharing this and setting up this financial part of my Notion systems is I wanted to more intentionally keep track of where my money was going. In my personal life, in my business, I feel like I've gotten very, very lax in the last several years of spending things and not being really conscious of how much I'm spending, what I'm spending my money on, so on and so forth. So that is the reason why I did this. And I just wanted to put that out there before we got into the nitty gritty, that this isn't professional advice in any way, shape, or form. It's just me sharing with you. So keep that in mind. I'm not a financial advisor or planner. This is just something that I do.
So as I kind of already mentioned, this finance check-in, this finance date, if you will, is something that I do every single time I do a weekly review, so much so that it is actually built into my weekly review template. After I've done everything else, I do my money reset, which involves checking into my bank accounts and updating any biz and personal stuff inside of my finance tracker. So let's go ahead and pop over to that. So as I go through this, I am not actually going to be plugging in my actual finances, my actual paychecks. I figure we got to keep some of this private, but I do want to show you kind of the layout for my finance tracker as well as kind of what I do each week when I do this finance check-in. So this is what my finance tracker looks like. I went ahead and I condensed down the sources of income that I have coming in, the expenses that I have coming in, but I'll go ahead and plug things in here just like I would for if I was doing my actual finance check-in. But I'll give you a quick tour of this finance page. This is literally a whole bunch of different templates combined together, a whole bunch of different ideas combined together all on one view, and it has been working tremendously well for me. The core of this with the income sources, the expense budgets, and then this guy down here are from that YouTube video that I mentioned at the beginning. I got my whole idea and layout for this income tracker from Chris's Notion on YouTube. I'll go ahead and link the video down below. He shows you how to build it, and I think he has a template as well. But I have been really loving this. I love the aesthetic of it. It's very minimalist, and it's just very simple, which is what I really, really like about it. So the first thing I have up top here, these are the financial goals that I'm currently working toward. I am saving for a down payment for a house or a condo. I'm paying off some credit cards. I want to create passive income in my business. I'm currently doing a 12-month shopping ban. I have not bought anything that is not a consumable since the start of the year, which has been a challenge, making $5,000 in bonuses this year. So these are some of my goals. And then these are some of my objectives. I've been using the OKR goal setting system and loving it so far. If you want me to do another video on that, I can definitely do that. So go ahead and drop a comment below if you want to. So the first thing that I do whenever I do my weekly finance date is I plug in any incoming income. So I'm going to keep this collapsed so that you're not going to be able to see any of the income that has come in because of privacy reasons, frankly, but I'll show you what it kind of looks like. The vast majority of the income that comes into this income tracker is actually automated. I have a Zapier Zap set up that drives any new incoming payments that I have coming into my business straight to my income tracker. So I can keep track of those automatically without a lot of extra work. So that actually covers any income that's coming in from one-on-one coaching, from speaking, from my memberships, from my digital products. The only two that doesn't cover is any income that comes from Beachbody. I am still a Beachbody coach, even though I don't actively do it anymore. I still occasionally get income coming in from that. So income coming in from Beachbody and then income coming in from like Amazon purchases and whatnot. So those and my income from my day job, I have to manually put in. So when I sit down to do my weekly finance date, these are the things that I am adding into my income. So say, for example, I want to add in my paycheck. I actually do get paid tomorrow. So I would go in and I would say paycheck. I'd say however much my paycheck is for, the date that I got paid, This year automatically gets checked if it is a payment that is happening this year. This is actually something I added from the original YouTube tutorial because I wanted to be able to designate when stuff was happening. So I have filters you can kind of see over here. I have things separated by, you know, what I did each month for this year. And then anything that is prior to this year is funneled into this past filter. So I like to filter it by the year. And then I go in and I select the account for where it was deposited and the income source. So if this was my paycheck for my day job, I would select my day job from my budgets, and then that would get added into my this guy. So then, for example, I would also go in, since everything else is happening automatically inside of here, anything from all these other sources from my business, I don't necessarily have to go in and add those in. They just get added in. So then it would really just be a matter of checking my bank accounts to see if I got any deposits from Beachbody or from Amazon. And then if I did, go in and add those in. So usually the Beachbody deposits are something like, they're pretty small. They're usually like $32 or $50. It's just commission from people who had signed up as customers of mine like forever ago. And then I would go in and I would select the account. Anything that comes into my business goes into my business accounts first. And then what I do to keep track of stuff for my business is I always select my business. So this is any income that comes in for my business. And then I select where the source of income that came from. Because at the end of each year in my business, I like to kind of, and actually at the end of each quarter, I like to ask myself, you know, what was the driver of my business this quarter? Was it one-on-one coaching? Was it memberships? Was it digital products? And instead of having to do all of that work manually after the fact, this allows me to keep track of that information very, very readily throughout the course of the year. So this has made it so easy for me to kind of see what is an income driver in my business. And I've been loving that. So I'll go in and I'll plug in those things. This usually doesn't take very long. Maybe it takes like 5-10 minutes max. The part that usually takes a little bit longer is the expenses. So with the expenses, I will go in and I will say, I usually do them by personal, and then I do all of my business expenses. So business expenses might be something like, I don't know, Squarespace scheduling or something like that. Maybe I just had a new payment for my Squarespace scheduling that I use. I think that's like $150 a year or something like that. I don't remember, but I'll put in whatever the amount is, and then I will go in and I will select what budget that is associated with. Let me go ahead and move my face down. So this is one thing that I don't love, but frankly hasn't been a big hindrance, is all of my personal and my business budgets are all mixed together here. So I'll usually designate something like that as like business services, or maybe I might designate it as like website related stuff. Let's actually for now go ahead and call it business services because it's more used for scheduling. And then I'll go in and I will potentially select an account. Now, this is one thing that I do differently that helps me to better keep track of how much money is actually in my accounts, is if this wasn't a payment that was made directly out of my bank account, then I don't select an account. I actually only select an account for things that directly came out of my bank account. So that's very, very few of my actual expenses come out of my bank account directly, or it's usually just like a credit card payment. So I do put my credit card payments in here as expenses, and you'll actually see over here that I have a budget. Let's go over to personal. I have a budget related to credit card payments. So that is where that stuff kind of all goes. So I'll have Squarespace scheduling. And then for this one, I'll click expenses. So it does that little downward arrow. And then for this one in particular, this would typically go on a credit card. So I wouldn't actually select an account for that. Other expenses here, especially because it's the start of the month, and actually this is an expense that I will be putting in imminently, is rent. So whatever my rent payment was, it's usually something like that. And then that would go under rent and housing. And that definitely should have been paid on the first. I actually really need to check that I paid that. And then you want to go related account. And this is going to come straight out of my personal account. So I would click that in that case. So I can go ahead and go through and add in more things here, but this is really the gist of it. This is really what I am doing as I am adding stuff in, is I am going in, checking my bank accounts, and whatever is in my bank account, I add that expense into this tracker. I select what account it goes with and what expense it goes with. The last part of this is the subscription tracker. And I will admit, I don't use this a ton. It might be something that I remove from this, but this allows me to keep track of the various different subscriptions that I have, that I am paying for, so that I know, which ones I may or may not want to remove. But this is something that I do every week is I'll check in with what subscriptions that I have coming up. This one I actually stopped. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that guy. And then I also stopped, I think I removed it already. Yeah, I also stopped my workspace because I wasn't really using it. So that is kind of how I keep track of my subscriptions. And that's really a very, straightforward, simple look at my finance state. I didn't obviously show you all of it because I don't want to necessarily go into my expenses with you all, but I've been loving this tracker to use it. I love how simple it is. And I love how it breaks out my expenses into all of these different places so that I really have a very, very clear handle on where my money is going and for what. So if you have any questions, if you've got any thoughts, comments, go ahead and drop them in the comments down below. If you liked what you're seeing, don't forget to like and subscribe. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to y'all next time. Bye.